Best of r/entitled parents episode 99. Subscribe for Reddit videos daily. Mobile. Some backstory. I work for a rental car company. I started last May. This summer I worked at the bigger of the locations in my state, which is partnered to the state's major airport. Now, just because it is the bigger location and next to this airport, it is nothing compared to Boston, LAX, or other major airports with the same company, so we do things differently, because we are wicked small compared to them. I worked many positions that summer, and for this story I was on what we call instant return. Basically I wait in the parking garage with a tablet to process returns faster so you don't have to go wait at the desk to check out, and I help renters locate their vehicles if needed. Cast, me, EM entitled Mom EK entitled kid/daughter, about 14. I'm in the parking garage, returning a car for someone when I notice EM and EK frustratedly walking around our parking spots. We only had 45 at the time for our company. I decide to help them once I finish the return. EM approaches me and angrily says, "Where are the keys to this vehicle? I'm in a huge rush and I want this one." This vehicle was a luxury SUV. We have all of the vehicle's keys at our front counter, which is where you have to go through the rental process, right through those doors to the left. I'm a priority member. I can pick whatever car I want and leave. Where are the keys? I'm sorry mom. We are a small location so we don't offer that service as we have an unsecured lot and don't have an exit gate. EK no, you don't understand. We pick the car and leave. I'm sorry but at this location. Yes you do, every location allows that. EK we want this one now. I'm sorry, you'll have to go inside. Since your priority all you need to do is show your license and your contract is already printed. This is ridiculous, you expect me to wait in line? As priority? It would already be. EK you should ask for her manager, this is crazy. You're right EK, let's go. With this service, she won't be here much longer. A few minutes later I see them fuming walking to a different vehicle. My manager had explained the same thing I had to them, and they had put up a fit because they booked a mid-size car and didn't expect a need to pay for the luxury SUV they wanted. As priority, they got a free upgrade of one car class so they ended up in a full size, but boy were they mad. I've never had a job where I've had to deal with such nasty people. This is just one of many stories I have. More info for the curious. At larger locations there is a line of vehicles priority members can choose from because they have to drive through an exit gate where the additional charges depending on what vehicle they choose are automatically added. The keys are left in those cars because it's a secured lot. Thank you. Next. Sorry if there are any format issues. On mobile. My story begins 8 years ago when I started seeing my now ex, EM. She has a daughter that we will call Sally. When EM and I got together it seemed perfect except for one thing. Sally's dad seemed to never want to see his daughter. Me being the caring person I am that was raised by a step-parent gladly stepped up and became daddy. Time went on, we had a son. More time went on and I started to see how manipulative she is and all around crazy. Decided to break it off with her. 1 month later she tells me she's pregnant, and being the logical person that I am, I know that babies don't save relationships, but was there for her every step of the way during pregnancy and gladly have both of my sons every other weekend and holidays as well as 4 weeks during the summer. Enter her new boyfriend. I notice my now 2-year-old son calling her boyfriend daddy, and after talking to her about this and trying to reason with her that she's confusing our youngest son, it clicks in my head and I'm overcome with guilt as I now realize I was used to push her daughter's father out of the picture and she is now trying to do the same to myself. Luckily he wasn't too hard to track down. I spoke with him on the phone about everything that happened and apologized over and over again for being blind enough to be able to be used like that, and am now letting him see his daughter after 7 years because I was smart enough to get a parent plan, and his daughter comes over to my house with my sons. EM doesn't know yet, but we are both taking her to court and doing whatever we can to get our children away from her. Will update if people want and will respond to any questions and comments that I can. Thank you. Next. My office is open concept. For part of the year we need extra help so we bring in contractors. One of them constantly FaceTimes her toddler and baby talks to them loudly. This is in the middle of the office. I'm not sure what planet this person lives on, but this is not okay. Our office has multiple lobbies and private seating areas for people to go have these kinds of conversations. It's so distracting and rude. Send help please before I throw my computer at this woman. So far everyone has been too nice to say anything to her and she apparently doesn't see anything wrong with this behavior. Thank you. Next. I've been reading the book Disney's Land by Richard Snow, which is about the misadventures that went into building Disneyland. This one anecdote sounded all too familiar to a reader of this thread. Disneyland opened with a press and celebrity day, but the second day was opening day for paying guests. A college student named Dave McPherson wanted to be the first regular guide to go in through the front door. So he showed up at 1 a.m. for a 10 a.m. opening. By daylight, there were 6,000 people in line behind him. He describes those last few moments before the gate opened. Well, I had thought that perhaps someone might try to get ahead of me at the last moment. So I had prepared a sheet to the effect that I was first and had last-minute workers and security people sign it. Sure enough, about 5 minutes before the gates opened, a woman and 2 little kids tried to get in front of me. So I pulled out the sheet, like a miniature Declaration of Independence, and showed it to her. It was like Dracula seeing the light shining on the cross and she slunk back. So from the very first, entitled parents have been part of Disneyland. Thank you. Next. This is a story about my entitled stepmom and my brothers. While my mom was involved, she was a minor player. This also took place before cell phones. Cast, me 15 years at the time. Esm, entitled stepmom. Tigger, middle bro 13 yo. Rabbit, youngest bro 9 yo. Mom, married to Esm and biological parent. The nicknames came from our mom and according to her, our personalities matched the Winnie the Pooh characters. Mom calls me Eeyore. We lived in what's known as a 3-family house. Esm and mom owned the house and we used the first and second floors, but rented out the third. For those that are not aware, a 3-family house is a freestanding house with 3 separate apartments, usually 1 per floor, connected by a main hallway. The first floor was used as a living room, kitchen, dining room, and home offices, while the second floor is where the bedrooms are and the playrooms. Since these are considered separate apartments, the doors to each apartment was pretty thick and it was hard to hear through the door. Also because cell phones were not a thing yet, if you wanted to get a hold of a child that was on the second floor, you had to yell pretty loudly in the hallway up the stairs. Sometimes my poor Esm had to actually climb the stairs to get a hold of someone. /s. Eventually my Esm decides that enough is enough and she is going to install a doorbell on the second floor and put the button on the first floor. That way if she needs one of us, she can just hit the button. So she goes out, purchases, and installs it. She sits us down and tells us about the bell and what it means when it rings. Also she assigns each of us a number of rings. Rabbit is 1, Tigger is 2, while I am 3. When the doorbell is rung, we are to pause whatever we are doing, go downstairs and walk into the living room and ask what's up. We couldn't walk downstairs and ask from the doorway. We had to physically walk into the living room several steps so she could see us from her spot on the couch. That's right, my Esm installed the doorbell in a spot she could reach without getting off the couch. Now sometimes we were paged for normal things, like checking our homework or to do the dishes. Other times we were called for dumb things, like filling her wine glass with the boxed wine, or getting her a glass of water. Oh, and the water had to be cold, no ice, but you had to let the faucet run for 30 seconds. The problems started occur, because as I said she had installed the button for the doorbell in easy reach of her position on the couch. In fact she installed it on the side of the coffee table, where her knees were, which led to several accidental activations, and Rabbit would run downstairs to see what's going on. He would walk into the living room and ask what's up. Esm would be confused since she couldn't hear the doorbell upstairs and there was no way she accidentally hit the button, since that was impossible. After like a month of Rabbit appearing after being accidentally beckoned, he started yelling at Esm, which almost always ended up with Rabbit losing electronics for the day. This became such a common occurrence that my mom finally stood up to Esm and asked for the doorbell to be changed to 2 rings for Rabbit, 3 for Tigger, and 4 for me. Unfortunately Esm was stuck in her ways and didn't see this as a problem for her to solve. It was our job to know if it was accidental or not, which again, Rabbit would only know if he went downstairs. Then my mom asked to switch it, so that I was 1, Tigger was 2, and Rabbit was 3. Her reasoning was that I was more even-leveled and would be forgiving of an accidental ring. Esm said that was too confusing for us and she decided to keep the order the same. I guess for some reason she thought a 9-yo/15-yo couldn't understand the difference between 1 and 3, but we were required to get high marks in math. Anyways, eventually you get sick and tired of hearing the doorbell, even when it wasn't calling you. I replaced the battery in both the button and the ringer several times with dead batteries. Eventually I ran out of spare dead batteries. One day, I was playing video games in the playroom while Tigger was reading a book in his room, which due to the orientation of the house I could see him where he was laying down. Suddenly the bell goes off twice. Tigger proceeds to continue to read his book. 2 more rings and a frustrated sigh from Tigger. Another minute passes with 2 more bell rings. After the 3rd group, Tigger throws his book across his, stands up and grabs a metal baseball bat. Wordlessly, he walked out of his room and whacked that damned bell off the wall. While it was dying on the floor, he proceeded to hit it 2 more times to make sure it was dead. He gently put the bat back in his room and picked up his book from the floor. After witnessing this violent act, I hear my Esm storming up the stairs, so I quickly picked up my jaw from the floor. Esm rips open the door and demands to know why Tigger was not responding to the doorbell. He stands up and very calmly states he didn't hear any bell. Esm looks up at the wall where the former ringer was and then followed the wall down to the floor, where the doorbell lay demolished. Esm starts to get herself into a tizzy wondering what happened to the doorbell, and I reply without pausing my game, must have fallen. To this day I have no idea where I got the bravery to lie straight to her face. While I misbehaved, for talking back, ignoring her, or even being evasive, being sneaky, I did not lie. Esm, while self-absorbed, prided herself on me always telling the truth, so she couldn't call me a liar without hurting her own pride. She decides that it must have fallen and smashed itself into 1,000 pieces. She moves on, tells Tigger he needs to go downstairs and find the TV remote for her. Mum looked at the remains later and she knew it had not fallen. Luckily for us, Esm decided the doorbell was inefficient and decided all by herself that an intercom would have been better. Turns out she got the idea from magazine that I just happened to leave on the coffee table, open to an advertisements for an intercom. Oh well. Thank you. Next. This saga involves my mom, her sister aka entitled Aunt, EA, and my family. I apologize in advance for the lengthy background, but I needed to give you a sense how truly entitled this woman is. Background. Shortly after my mom and my dad had me, they decided to move from California to Florida. They were immigrants to this country and therefore were really poor at this time, and my mom was encouraged by EA to move to Central Florida so that family can be close and it was fairly cheap. Well, things didn't work out as planned, cause shortly after the move, my mom found out my dad had been having an affair and got the other woman pregnant, and they promptly divorced, but my dad got everything while my mom got sole custody of me and my older bro. Basically she had no home, car, phone, nothing. The only place she knew was EA house, which was large due to her husband's fairly successful construction company, and per my mom words the following happened. My mom knocked on the door and saw that EA opened it just a slit, looked at her for a solid second and promptly shut and locked the door. My mom told me she knew what that meant and didn't push it any further other than to just break down and cry as she walked down the road with us. My mom is a strong woman and builds relationships fast and strong. A trait an introvert like me never got, so she begged her boss for a loan, got a cheap car and a phone, and she sent me, being that I was basically still an infant at this point, back to her home country to be raised by my grandma, cause she knew she was in no state to take care of a baby, but at least she can take care of a toddler, big bro, and she worked her ass off to afford an apartment, food/daycare, with her goal being to eventually bring me back home. It was only after she met my future stepfather was she finally able to do that. The story. About 15 years later, due to the recession of 08, EA husband's business flopped and they lost their home and all their savings and were hotel surfing for a few years until my parents, who were doing a lot better now, offered a welcome hand for them to stay with us, since my mom is a bigger person than I'll ever be. When she arrived with her family, EA immediately demanded 2 rooms be allocated to her and the use of one of my parents' cars, and my mom told her it was the couches or nothing, and that shut her up real quick. So every day I came home from school I had to walk past them bumming on the couches, and my cousins weren't exactly pleasant to be around either. They always gave a snobbish "I'm better than you" vibe and generally ignored you to text on their phones, and EA avoided and never spoke to me, while husband was out for weeks doing odd jobs. They didn't do anything around the house, but my parents didn't care as long as they didn't make a mess, and my mom was more than happy to share food since at least EA knew how to make cuisine from their home country. The breaking point came after week 2 though, when my mom had prepared food for a family party and had it on the counters ready to be transported before she had to head out to do her nails. When she came back everything was gone. This was enough food to feed like 20 people, and they somehow managed to clean out more than half of it, and my mom was pissed. I remember hearing them yelling and arguing. I was told later of what was said, that EA was complaining about our crap hospitality and that if we have food then we needed to share it, that they were being forced to sleep on couches while we kept our rooms, etc. And when my mom pointed out what she did all those years back, EA retorted that she didn't want bums in her home, and with that EA was kicked out. EA apparently called my grandma to rant and complain. Now EA only ever calls my grandma to ask for money and never spoke to her otherwise, and my mom is considered the golden child in the family and calls her mom daily, so immediately my grandma shut her down and told her she deserves what happened and that she feels sorry for the kids, but now that they're teenagers they're grown enough that she, grandma, doesn't need to be sending EA money, especially when EA is fully capable of working. EA apparently moved into uncle's, who's too nice of a guy, house and bummed on their couches for 4-6 months before she was kicked out by my aunt after my mom told her over casual chat what EA did to uncle shortly after he immigrated to the US. Last thing my mom ever did for EA was get her a housekeeping job that she quit after 2 days cause it was too hard. The last thing I heard of them is that they're still hotel surfing with my now adult cousins and EA not working and the husband still trying to support them. Thank you. Next. So I went camping with my scout troop. Cast, S1, Scouter 1, S2, Scouter 2, S3, Scouter 3, ES, Entitled Scouter, EP, Entitled Scouters, Entitled Parent, SL, Scout Leader. During this time we were eating. We eat at picnic tables. I ate by myself at a table. S1, S2 and S3 ate at the one beside mine. SL was away somewhere collecting firewood. EP, my daughter is hungry. S2, cool. EP keeps staring at us. EP, give her yours. S2, what? EP, give her your plate. She's hungry. S2 licked his food. S2, still want it? EP, you're disgusting. I'll have you. S2, yeah, alright. Whatever. EP, to S3 and S1, give my daughter your food. S1, why? We need to eat too. EP, I'm an adult, and I tell you what to do. Now. S1, you're chaperone. You're not the leader. EP, I'm an adult. S3, you're f-king dumb. EP, I'm going to tell SL. And she did. But not in the way of what happened. EP told him that they stole ES's food. And apparently I was the only person who realized that ES had food on her plate, but she didn't want to eat it. Like WTF.